or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, a bill to block land swaps like the controversial one attempted in the Guana Preserve. We talked to the lawmaker who drafted it about her bill and the upcoming legislative session. Then, a memorial service for those too often forgotten. We discussed the annual service for those who died living on the streets. And an annual holiday crime celebrates its 11th year in Fernandina Beach. We preview how the big band stole Christmas. Join the conversation. Give us a call on air at 904-549-2937 or head to firstcoastconnect.org, where you can find all the ways you can connect with us and sign up for our new daily newsletter. Stick around. We'll be back right after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Labor Department finally released its most recent jobs reports. Employers added only 64,000 jobs in November. This report was delayed by the 6-week government shutdown. The son of Hollywood director Rob Reiner remains in jail. He's been arrested in connection with the killing of his parents. Steve Futterman reports from Los Angeles. The case now goes to prosecutors.
The Los Angeles County District Attorney is expected to get the case today. It's possible Rob Reiner's 32-year-old son Nick may be formally charged with murder today. Yesterday, L.A. Police Chief Jim McDonnell announced the arrest by robbery and homicide officers.
They worked on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner. He was subsequently booked for murder.
Right now, he is being held without bail. In the past, Nick Reiner has acknowledged struggles with numerous mental health challenges and substance abuse. For NPR News, I'm Steve Futterman in Los Angeles.
This week, a panel of federal judges in Los Angeles is hearing testimony in a case challenging the new congressional maps just approved by California voters. The California Republican Party and the U.S. Justice Department are suing. From member station KQED, Marisa Lagos has more.
The lawsuit claims that Proposition 50 illegally drew new districts to favor Latino voters ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The ballot measure, which won nearly 65% of the vote, changed California's congressional maps to give Democrats a leg up. It was written after President Trump asked Texas Republicans to redraw their maps to benefit the GOP. Earlier this month, the Supreme Court allowed Texas's new map to go forward and mentioned in their ruling that both California and Texas's new districts are likely based on partisan advantage. For NPR News, I'm Marisa Lagos.
The BBC says it will fight a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that's been filed by President Trump. He's accusing the British broadcaster of intentionally editing clips in a TV documentary. Trump claims it makes it seem like he directed supporters to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. NPR's Lauren Freyer reports from London.
A BBC spokesperson says the network will defend this case, and lawmaker Stephen Kinnock says the British government supports that.
I think it's right that the BBC stands firm.
He spoke to Sky News. President Trump is seeking $5 billion for alleged defamation and another $5 billion for what his lawsuit says are deceptive and unfair trade practices. He accuses the BBC of, quote, maliciously defaming him to interfere with the last U.S. election. The BBC says the way it edited Trump's speech in that documentary was a mistake. It apologized to Trump and two executives resigned, but the network says there is no basis for compensation. Lauren Freyer, NPR News, London.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. The search for where to put a new Duval County jail appears to be picking up some steam. At a public hearing at City Hall last week, Jacksonville residents expressed concerns about where a potential new jail might be built if relocated from its current riverfront location on the North Bank. Chief Administrative Officer Mike Weinstein emphasized nothing has been decided about new sites. He expects consultants to come back in about a month with recommendations.
We haven't begun to do anything as to where these may go. We're going to spend some money with outside groups to help us come up with 3 sites that could potentially hold it. But as I was said before, there'll be town hall meetings. It'll be very transparent. This is such a project that there's no way it could be hidden.
With residents recalling the city's history of redlining and worrying about the jail coming to the area, City Council member Jimmy Peluso is pushing for a resolution that would be against Jacksonville's historic black neighborhoods from even being considered as potential locations for a new Duval County jail. Temperatures remain in the 30s and 40s to start the day here in Northeast Florida. This afternoon will warm up into the upper 50s to lower 60s with breezy conditions and no rain in the forecast. If you're headed out to the beaches today, just be mindful that there is a high chance for rip currents through the day. The best advice is to just stay out of the water. Overnight lows will drop down into the 40s and low 50s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism in the 21st century. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a controversial land swap proposal sparks legislation. We talked to the St. Johns County lawmaker who wants to prevent the kind of state park land surprises that have roiled residents over the past 2 years. Later in the program, remembering lives lost to homelessness. We talked to 2 organizers of the annual Homeless Memorial Commemoration. But first, less than a year after bipartisan backlash defeated a DeSantis administration proposal to allow golf courses and hotels in state parks, state officials were poised to sign off on another state land grab. The proposed Guana land swap prompted my guest to draft legislation to prevent similar attempts in the future. Republican State Representative Kim Kendall represents District 18 in northern St. Johns County, and she joins us now to discuss that and the upcoming legislative session. Good morning, Representative Kendall.
Good morning, Ann. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're also joined by Jacksonville Today's St. Johns County beat reporter, Noah Hertz. Noah, welcome.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks for having me.
So, Kim, a lot of things to discuss about the upcoming legislative session. It begins January 13th of next year, and it will include a number of bills that you've sponsored yourself. But I'd like to start with the one that I mentioned at the top, which is this proposal that it's really a direct reaction to what happened at Guana. Remind us a little bit about what happened there and what you heard from your constituents.
100%. So a few months ago, there was a proposed land swap. So Guana River WMA is located in St. Johns County. It's over 10,000 acres of beautiful greenlands, hiking, hunting, fishing, ecology, everything. It's been there, I believe, since 1983. And there was a group or a person that owned 100 acres just south of the outpost, if you're familiar with the area, and wanted to swap 3,000 random acres across 4 different counties for 600 additional acres within Guana River. And, of course, that's a horrible thing. We need to keep our green spaces green. I've told a lot of people that aren't familiar with our neck of the woods that Guana to us is like our Central Park, and we need to maintain that. So they tried to do a quick land swap. Thankfully, Florida Audubon was able to catch it. It was a last-minute add to a not scheduled meeting, not the normal regularly scheduled meeting. And we had less than 7 days to act to stop the swap. A lot of people are familiar with the park issue that happened last year. Florida Audubon said they actually had 39,000 people sign the petition last year. This year, over this Guana issue, there were 50,000 people that signed it. And that's
opposing.
Opposing. Thank you. Yes. So from that, and I tell you, when I had just come home from session before we went back again for special session, and luckily I had that week, but everybody, we just dug in our heels, everybody in the community everywhere dug in. but I've never used, there's this, I call it the red button on our legislative computers where I can click it and it will send an email to every legislator and all their staff. And I put on the subject line, SOS from Rep. Kendall in all caps, because I was so concerned that everybody cares about these issues, but not as much unless it's in your backyard. And I knew the park situation was very widespread in the state, and I was worried that it was just our county. So I reached out to everybody saying, if this happens to us today, it's going to happen to you tomorrow. I need your help. Everybody, please get the word out. And like I said, everybody got together. We were able to stop it. They pulled the request. But then it showed to me where we have some loopholes to take care of. So this bill is going to address transparency that has to be published, the intent of why it's a good land swap, appraisals have to be posted, and the notice time. It should have never just been 7 days. So we are putting in the bill that it'll be 30 days notice.
Right. And what would require any kind of public announcement that it's coming? In addition to the timeline, as you said, this was sort of discovered by almost by accident, by chance, by the Audubon Society. Thankfully, they were sort of watching this agenda. But had they not notified you and everybody else, it would have really passed unnoticed.
100%. So we've added in, and I asked Representative Allison Tant to be my prime co on the bill. She works with the state parks, and we both together really worked on how we can do better noticing, how the 30 days prior to the ARC board, the appraisals, making sure it's contiguous land. I mean, we went through every different section that we possibly could with our policy chiefs to try to address all those things. Now, it's still going, it'll still go through the committee process. So I would say to anybody listening, not only we appreciate, I've already been seeing some emails of support of the bill, which I so appreciate. But if there's suggestions or whatever, we've been trying to work with the stakeholders, but, we will take suggestions through the process to try to make it better.
Sure. And Noah Hertz, this was an issue that you covered extensively when it was happening. It ended up generating a lot of bipartisan support in perhaps a surprising way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's no secret that St. Johns County is a very Republican-leaning and Republican-dominated, I would say, part of Florida. And as such, I think there is a type of person you could expect maybe that it would be more in favor of property rights, maybe a little less worried about some of these more environmental issues, but that is absolutely not the case in St. Johns County. I mean, I went to a protest a couple of days after this was identified by Florida Audubon that some folks were holding out a couple of miles from the area at an intersection in Ponte Vedra Beach, and it was packed with people. And people, I talked to a good bit of people out there, people across age demographics, across socioeconomic demographics, across political stripes. It was a lot of people who were opposed to this. And I think to your point too, Kim, about the sponsors of this bill, I mean, the co-introducers now of this bill run the gamut of, Dean Black, Republican here from Jacksonville, all the way to Anna Eskamani down in Orlando, who is arguably one of the most, if not the most progressive members of the Florida House. So
those two might represent actually the polar opposite.
So it is really interesting that this has garnered so much bipartisan support too. And I want to note too, to an element that you discussed of this bill about the transparency of the reasoning for it. I know when I talked to people about this specific land swap, people were frustrated about just the idea of giving up land in this wildlife management area that is like not quite a state park, but still state-owned conservation land. A big sticking point I heard from people when I talked to them was just that there was no information about what could happen to this land, because the proposers of the land swap, this Upland LLC, was a private enterprise, like you said, Kim. It could have been a person, it could have been a company. There was really no information about who they were, what they wanted to do. I mean, there were rumors floating around, but none of those were substantiated. And when Upland announced that they were no longer going to go forward with the land swap, in the letter from their legal representation, it said something like they had pulled it due to misinformation that was floating around. But it's difficult to identify misinformation when there's no information to begin with about it. So I know that was a big sticking point for a lot of people.
So I spoke to the attorney, and he said the same thing to me. He also said that they thought they could take better care of the land than the state, and they were worried about the gunshots. I don't know
because
what
it's
that
a
was
wildlife
about.
management area.
Yeah,
I guess. But he said the same thing too. He said this was misinformation because we were required to have to make it all conservation. And I stopped him there. I said, that is not accurate. According to the Florida statute, it can be all or partial amount. And to your point, I told him, I said, I reached out through our policy chiefs at DEP. I was trying to see ahead of time, what portion, were you going to make it all conservation? Not likely in my opinion, but, or a portion or whatever, to see that ahead of time. And I was told I would not be able to see it until they presented at the ARC meeting. And so that was, again, some of the information that Allison Tant and I put to make sure that information's got to be clear and ahead of time. And, and this doesn't negate a good swap, right? If it's a great swap, if this really was more beneficial for us, then show us, explain it to us, and we'll cheer you on. But the way it's set up right now, not a fan. So we're very happy to be able to bring this bill.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us, we are talking to St. Johns County-based State Representative Kim Kendall about her plans for the upcoming legislative session. We're also joined by St. Johns County beat reporter Noah Hertz. If you have questions for the lawmaker or comments in general, you can join us on air at 904-549-2937. You can also go to firstcoastconnect.org and find all of the quick links to connect with us. The need to explain or justify a land swap like that is sort of central in this new legislation that you've proposed. And it was something obviously missing from what was transpiring earlier this year. But in order to say, in this case, there was going to be a net gain of conservation lands. The 600 acres here in the Guana was going to be exchanged for 3,000 acres total elsewhere. But your legislation would require an explanation as to why this would benefit. So it couldn't just be a total acreage. You'd have to explain why the land that was being given up didn't have conservation value and why the swap would be more beneficial.
100%. And also, Allison Tant was so great, she quickly grabbed Matt Caldwell. He's the former representative that wrote the land swap legislation. So in this instance, and we really dug in hard like we were cramming for a college exam to get prepared when I thought I was going to have to present before the ARC. The contiguous land swap, it should have never even hit the table because it should have just been side by side. It's not intended.
Explain. I'm sorry.
So it's intended like if he wanted to swap, say, his 100 acres for the 600 next to it, that's what the land swap. When they say contiguous, not I want to swap 100 or 600 acres over here for 3,000 random.
So there's a permissible
side by side.
I see. So if in a permissible land swap situation,
Correct.
They should be adjacent land.
At least under that Florida statute. If they want to bring something else under a different Florida statute, they might. But in the land swap, that was the intent. Matt Caldwell was so gracious to just continually go over it with me and Allison to make sure I understood it. But that was the way they got it to where the state could acquire more land without having to pay the funding and stuff. But land swap contiguous, it's not just that these 3,000 happen to be contiguous with something over there and this 100 contiguous. They have to be contiguous in the land swap. A has to be contiguous to B.
Yeah. All right. I do want to kind of shift to a couple of other things that are your proposals coming up in the legislative session. So first of all, just remind us a little bit about the parameters of the legislative session. It doesn't start at the same time every year. People are a little bit confused by that. A lot has already taken place. A ton of meetings have happened. A lot of legislation is sort of already on its track. People are sometimes surprised to know that so much has already been done. They may feel like they've missed an opportunity. And then you've introduced 7 bills. That's sort of the standard of what is allowable for each lawmaker. So tell us a little bit about the parameters of the session.
And that's a great question. I appreciate getting that because we know so much about our county commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then in the news, you hear about Congress, but state seems to be a black hole. So every year, and you're right, we alternate years. We do 6 committee weeks. This year it was 2 in October, 2 in November, and 2 in December. And then we're required by state law to do 60 continuous days for sessions. So this coming year, it will be January 13th through March 13th. But every other year, we alternate. So instead of the following year, when it's an odd number year, we do March through May. So it alternates. And then we do the 6 committee weeks prior to. So the committee weeks, mainly, we spend a lot of time hearing from industry. If we're like I'm on a careers and workforce committee, we hear a lot from the trades and the careers and workforce industries come and talk to us about the hot issues, good, bad, and different. We can ask them directly to get ideas for legislation or just information. We can do amendments, things like that. And then a few of the bills will creep out during committees, and some of them that you might be able to see like their first round, if you will, or their first stop. Most of the bills will head to session time. And so like last year was, I don't know what the total was, maybe about 1,800 bills, and only
Something
150,
like that, yeah.
only 150 got into law.
Yeah.
I did get 6 bills into law, which was, I think, the air traffic controller in me. I was like, boom, 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 boom. We just went full steam ahead. But it's, like I said, it's about 10% of the bills that actually will make it from the beginning to the end. So during session is where you will hear most of them. And then if it's not through the subcommittees assigned to it by like the 5th week, would you agree?
Yeah.
Noah, that then it's dead, but it'll keep going till the end of session. And if you don't get it through both the House and the Senate, and then they both have to have the exact same verbiage, if they don't, they have to pass back and forth, and you have to pick up the Senate version, or the Senate has to pick up the House version, so it's uniform. Then, of course, it goes to the governor's desk, and he could still veto it. So it's still a lengthy process. Now, the Senate can have as many bills as they want. The House is limited this year. I believe each speaker, decides how many. I've heard it's been 6 before, but it's currently 7 is the maximum that we can bring. And we can't bring a bill out unless we have a Senate sponsor. So starting the process, especially for me, I mean, some people were still picking up bills, I think, during this fall and winter season. I like to start early and really just start digging into the top issues in my backyard and start trying to funnel through. Like this Guana bill, we started it in June, starting to research on it.
Yeah, Noah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, I know you mentioned how many bills were filed last year and how comparatively few passed. I know last year was especially hot given all of the butting heads about the budget and how to sort that out. I mean, the session ran like a good ways over. Are you expecting that things might be a little more cordial between the House and the governor's office this upcoming legislative session with the new Speaker of the House?
A new speaker and a local speaker, right? Sam Garrison is going to be...
he's the speaker designate, so we will still have Speaker Danny Perez.
Okay.
Leading us.
So that's a difficult relationship that he's had with the governor, right?
I'm going to be honest. Why I was so successful, I kept my head down and worried on my backyard. I had a former representative who went out last year. I saw him at an event. He patted me on the back and he goes, "It's a good year to be a freshman." So honestly, the upper level stuff, I have honestly just tried to stay out of it.
I don't blame you, but is that difficult?
Honestly, again, no. And I think all I can think is because I'm an air traffic controller by trade. For 10 years, I did it as a career. My husband was as well. And you're just kind of not only more logical, you're set with your radar scope, right? So I worked at Jacksonville Center in Hilliard. There's 35 radar scopes. Everybody has their chunk. And there's times, that we talk to each other, but mainly it's about your scope and focusing on that. And so, and especially as a freshman, I mean, we're not in leadership, we're not in any of those kind of negotiations or back and forth kind of issues on the top issues. We're just about our backyard and getting those 7 bills across the line and getting those appropriations working nonstop with the policy chiefs and chairs. And so it's been a blessing. I was surprised how much bonding has happened with our freshman class. And I love it. And we are such a wide variety. We have cowboys from the Midwest and Cubans from Miami and business owners. It's just been it's wonderful representation of our state. And I grew up as a military brat. I love that kind of camaraderie. And we've really bonded. So I love it.
And is that bipartisan bonding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some of them, some of my bills are very Republican right, and I had somebody else mention it, and they're right. So some of my Democrat friends, like I said, I brought on Democrats on the Guana bill. They're going to oppose me. I'm probably not going to win over their votes, but then afterwards we'll have lunch together and be laughing and having a good time. And sadly, I wish more people could do that, right? We don't have to agree on every single issue. And I love hearing different, points of view. I mean, that's how you sharpen your thoughts. Maybe I convince you, maybe you convince me, maybe we don't. It's okay to have differing points of view, but sadly we can't talk about politics, it seems like.
Right. And I mean, one issue that is bound to be partisan is redistricting, right? That's something that Florida is considering. A lot of other states have already gone through this process. We know that there's a lot of pressure on states from the president to, at least Republican states, to go through a redistricting mid-cycle. And so I'm just curious about your thoughts about, given the split in the state. I mean, right now we know that Republicans have gained a lot of voters. They now represent about 40% of voters. Democrats represent about 30% of voters. Independents about 25%. And so there is a natural majority of Republicans, and yet Republicans control, the governor's house, the legislature, both Senate seats in D.C., most congressional seats in D.C. What are your thoughts about whether kind of the current allotment of who's in power in Florida is fair representation when you think about the 55% of people that are independent or Democrat?
As far as fair representation, our former Commissioner of Agriculture was a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, we had Bill Nelson next to Marco Rubio, which are both stateside senators, that you vote for the entire state. I do think our state has the ability of, choosing people on policies. I think there are so many of us, as a party, I personally think it benefits to say you're a Republican or a Democrat, but no two people are alike, and there's always going to be those issues. And I think the voters are very informed. I certainly know in my district we are. And I think people vote for people. And so I think, the people are going to vote for who they like. I do know, like in my district, which is the northern half of St. Johns County, and I think we're like plus 28 Republican. I mean, we are deep red. But I know for a fact that because the primary kind of is the election for St. Johns County, if you win the Republican primary, you win the seat. There are a ton of Democrats who have switched their party to Republican so that they can vote and have a say. So I don't know.
And a lot of voters who've done the same.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And you see that in other states too. I know forever we had in northern St. Johns County, when I moved there, we had a Democrat Senator, Tony Hill, state senator, that represented me. And I never got to vote for him. Because he won in the Democrat primary, and then he ran against somebody who didn't exist, I guess, or dropped out or whatever. And then I never got to vote for him in the general. But we had a general state senator when I first moved to St. Johns County. So it's, I think there's a lot of things that the numbers don't necessarily run true, in my opinion. And I think, adults know how to kind of discern what the issues are important to them.
What is your sense about whether you support a mid-cycle redistricting?
I am not on that committee. Excuse me. And there's a reason, because I just was like, I'm going to leave it to the folks that know what they're doing or may have a better, grasp of things. It's my understanding that they have begun the process. And if the House moves forward, then I will monitor it just like everybody else and see what happens. But I believe we're just kind of in a holding pattern like most people.
We've got an email from Ricardo. He says, what does Ms. Kendall think about a state-backed catastrophic hurricane insurance program to separate the hurricane premiums from the rest of the home insurance? This could lower premiums significantly for homeowners and be a better option than lowering property taxes, since it doesn't strip local governments of needed revenue and it respects local rule.
So we do have a state-backed hurricane insurance. It's called Citizens, and it has been a big mess for our state, in my opinion. It has never been actuarially sound, and we are the backers if we have too many hurricanes. I think a couple years ago, they said if one of the hurricanes had hit just a few miles more north or south, we would have been in a big, big mess. So we are actively trying to claw off those citizen people that have Citizens onto other types of insurance companies. We need to get more reinsurance companies in here. We need to bring the competition to bring the rates down. And so I am not a fan of Citizens.
Yeah.
I'm glad that emailer mentioned both, disaster recovery as well as respecting home rule too, because I know a really hot issue in St. Johns County among elected officials has been last year's Senate Bill 180. I mean, I don't want to go 100% in the weeds here because it's dense and it's a lot, but the long and short of it is that it was pitched as a conservation bill or a disaster recovery bill, but has in practice ended up restricting or tying the hands of a lot of municipalities who have been trying to pass new elements of their rules that would enforce stricter conservation rules or stricter development rules and that kind of thing. I know there's a lot of municipalities that have sued the state over that.
The places that are trying to build a more resilient kind of
yes.
future.
And, St. John's, the county commission considered joining the lawsuit against the state over that, but opted to instead let that play out at the state level. I know that was a bill that you initially voted for last year. There's been some talk at the county commission over whether you would support either a glitch bill or something to change things. Where do you stand on SB 180 there?
I appreciate the question. So I think it passed unanimously. Do you know?
I believe there might have been maybe one abstention or something. Yeah, but nearly unanimously.
And like you said, the bill we saw, I was told it was a last minute ad at the very end. I can't say that caused some issues, but some major issues. But it was presented to us and the bill read, we have so many homeowners, not so badly up here. We're kind of safe. That doesn't mean we're hurricane proof, but anybody who's lived in the Jacksonville area any amount of time knows a lot of times we get missed. It goes for Orlando or it scoops up and goes to South Carolina. But yeah, knock on wood.
Everybody's knocking on wood.
Knock on wood. But there are a ton of homeowners who have been knocked out of their homes due to the hurricane, especially in the southern part of the state. And the insurance companies are having these claims and they can't move back into their home. So it's a real issue. So, and it was interesting, when I'm very blessed. I have a lot of my citizens in my district that will email me ahead of time because I'm trying to speed read as much as I can. Nobody can speed read 2,000 bills. But if you have your specialty, I rely on my firefighters to watch the firefighter bills and things like that and give me a heads up if there's something I need to start paying attention to. Nobody caught whatever was added in there, even the couple weeks that the governor gets before he has to sign the bill, or, it seemed to take, I don't know, some sort of portion of time after. It seemed like it was a month before I started hearing from folks. And it seemed like everybody didn't hear or had any issues while it was moving through. I'm a big supporter of local home rule. I actually voted against the Live Local Act because of that. I was one of the few that did. And of course, I would support a glitch bill. Made it very clear to my commissioners as well. It's my understanding because of the Senate bill, our comp plan was not approved. I'm very, very, it matters to me. We have our local electeds for a reason. I don't feel like in Tallahassee, I should be deciding home rule issues from Key West to Miami. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I want to ask you about a couple local bills that you're proposing. One is a workforce. It has to do with people who've been incarcerated and would give them an opportunity to do some training before they're released, particularly for commercial driver's licenses.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about the trades. And from a recent visit of some jails and prisons, we noticed there's a gap when we have some great certifications going on. One of them that we don't have is getting CDL licenses to inmates behind the fence. So this bill is going to work on identifying certain inmates, not somebody who's had 20 DUIs or something that wouldn't be appropriate for the field. And within their last 2 years, identify them and get them the training and the certifications to either drive a Class A, which is like an 18-wheeler, or Class B CDL, which is like cement trucks, dump trucks, things like that, and connect them with the industry. The bill also partners with the Florida Department of Transportation. They just recently started the Florida Transportation Academy, focused on heavy construction. It also will allow inmates to be able to drive state vehicles for this specific purpose. They have to be able to speak English. That's actually in the bill as well. And I love also, we heard so much from industry that any of the CDL drivers that have less than 2 years experience, the insurance premiums and workers' comp is through the roof.
Yeah.
So we also have in the bill compensation, first come, first serve, but $5,000 per employee and up to $20,000 per employer, where they can request that reimbursement if they hire somebody with less than 2 years experience.
Another and possibly more controversial proposal has to do with parental rights. So this is your House Bill 173, and part of it would, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of it would prohibit minors from receiving treatment for sexually transmissible diseases without parental consent. Same for non-surgical contraceptives and maternal health information. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would say that could really put some kids at risk, particularly if they don't have the kind of relationship with their parent where they feel like they can talk about those things.
So in the bill, we have, and it's the same bill I ran last year with Representative Plankin. It's just me on the House side this time, and Senator Grall is running it again. I made it all the way through the House and through the chamber floor. Senator Grall made it through all of her committees, but not the last vote. It didn't get picked up on the last vote. So it's the same bill. It has, and I wish I had it in front of me, but that's happy to follow back up. But there are 16 different exceptions that are in the bill. It's not intended to hurt any young girls or boys or anybody. There's 1 million of those, plus anytime there is any kind of emergency or a threat, or we're concerned about a girl that's being raped by her foster dad. That seemed to be the example that comes forth. They can talk to anybody. That is still allowed. And we just need the parents, in my opinion, to be part of the process for several reasons. One, if you have, say, the 15-year-old girl that is in a horrific situation of being molested by her foster dad, and she can't ask the dad for permission, well, we're enabling them. So then we're allowing the 15-year-old to be taken care of and go back to that horrific situation. We have to get her and any of her siblings out of that situation. We need to know about it, as well as the parents want to be part of the process of mental health, physical health, things like that. I'll give you one quick example. My son has mastocytosis. Most people haven't heard of that. It's a rare skin disease. And you have to not only avoid very hot, very cold. He can never be part of the polar bear club, but he cannot take antihistamines. He can't take ibuprofen. He can't take Tylenol. There are certain things, if those cross, it can cause permanent damage to his organs. So again, I don't want my 14-year-old son going off and getting treatment and not know those things when I need to be part of his healthcare process.
Do you think that it's possible that just that provision, even if you are going to eventually talk to your parent and say, hey, I've contracted an STD, or I think I have, do you worry that would naturally build in some delay before those things are treated, that there would be some time that just a kid needs to kind of build up to that conversation, time during which an STD could progress, or they could be having unprotected sex without, some sort of contraceptive?
So the exam is still allowed without parental involvement. So they would know instantly, and they're very quick. We've talked to a lot of folks, and I've actually as well done my due diligence with doctors and mental health professionals and stuff, doing my research on the bill, but there are avenues to quickly get those things resolved, but the exam is okay without parental permission.
No.
Yeah, I thought when I was reading this bill yesterday, I thought a really interesting element of it, too, was the element of surveys and questionnaires that could be given to minors. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the provision is that parents or guardians would have to see copies of questionnaires that could be delivered to minors before the minors take them if they have questions about things like their sexual health, their sexual orientations, their religious identity, their political affiliations. That seems like it does kind of fall in line with where the parental rights ideas and movements have kind of gone in Florida over the last couple of years.
So when it comes to surveys, and there's also the heart math monitor, the biofeedback thing, which is horrible to me. But the surveys,
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. Okay, we can hit that if you want. So the surveys, the normal surveys are allowable. Educators, my grandmother taught at Dinsmore Elementary School on the west side of Jacksonville for over 40 years. My great-grandmother was the first female superintendent in Bacon County. So the educational surveys are fine. There's only, I believe it's 7 or 8, again, I don't have the bill in front of me, exceptions, which come to, like you mentioned, religion, gender ID, political affiliations of the kid and their family, and things like that. All we ask is to allow us to opt in. So the normal surveys that are needed for, financial aid or just regular education, teaching and stuff, but these particular, like I said, I think it's about 8, give or take 1. We just want to see it ahead of time. Oh, okay. This makes sense why they're asking this particular question, to let us opt in so the student can be part of that.
And what was you were referencing?
Oh, the heart math monitor. This is a fun one. So it's a resource that is allowed throughout the state to use. I know for a fact, because again, I focus on my district, number 1. There are 7 schools that have been using it in St. Johns County.
And what does it measure?
So, your heart. So let's say we'll take Noah as an example. Noah's a bad kid in our class, right? So I'm the teacher and I've identified him. So I'm going to tell Noah, okay, now hook your finger to this device that plugs into your computer. You're going to see this red graph. You're irritated, agitated. Now you're going to self-regulate yourself down. We're using it for discipline. Calm, breathe calmly. It'll turn to blue. Now, because we can't afford for every kid to have this heart math monitor, we're going to put it on the screen in front of the class. So all of us, all the children, y'all can participate. Watch Noah breathe down quietly, bring himself down, blah, blah, blah. Then we're going to collect that data. We're going to recommend you and your parents go to mental health counseling. So for me, again, if this is a great device, tell me ahead of time, because I'll tell you, my son would have used it to cut up in class and been disruptive. My daughter would have been so embarrassed and traumatized, she would have never wanted to go back. So that's all we're asking, just the same thing like with the surveys. Just tell us ahead of time and allow us to opt in.
It is a interesting proposal. I really hope that we're able to get you back during session. I know you're busy then, but it's great to kind of get a heads up on what you're looking at. And it's very nice to have you on the program. So thank you so much,
Thank you for having
Kim
me.
Kendall.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for being here. Noah Hertz from Jacksonville today. Noah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to be talking about an upcoming memorial for those who lost their lives to homelessness. Welcome back. Each December, advocates for the unhoused gather to honor a group that is often spoken of as a problem and instead acknowledge them as individuals. Here to tell us about the annual Homeless Memorial Service is Guana Allen, the Chief Public Affairs Officer for Changing Homeless. Guana, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning.
We're also joined by Paul Stassi, the Executive Director of City Rescue Mission. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, Guana, this memorial is always held around the winter solstice. It is the first day of winter, also the longest day of the year, or the longest night, I should say, of the year. And so it's often cold. It is a time where people sometimes find the idea of homelessness a little more relatable. Tell us a little bit about what this event does, who it brings together.
Sure. Thank you again for having us. So this event is really important for our community. Communities across the country actually recognize this day. And oftentimes people don't think about the challenges that come along with homelessness aside from what they physically see. There's a lack of connection. You know, we have friends and family that we can reach out and call and spend time with if we want. Oftentimes, persons who are unhoused don't have that. Along with the other challenges that come along with, being on the streets. And so the memorial really brings together folks from across our community, our member agencies, people who are in the work and who do the work every day in terms of helping people who are unhoused. Oftentimes they are their clients or, people they're working with regularly. And then the family members also of the persons who they may not have a traditional service, in terms of, their lives. And so this may be the only time that there is anything that publicly kind of acknowledges them and recognizes their lives.
Paul, humanizing unhoused people is, can be pretty critical to motivating people to kind of care about outcomes. And it can be really easy for people to detach from people that, are living in often very dire circumstances. So what is how does this help the larger community connect with the issue or the people?
Yeah, so I think it makes it makes the whole situation of homelessness real. And if I could just give you a story, Johnny was living on the streets for years, sleeping on a sidewalk. He had an addiction to alcohol and crack. And one day, one of our counselors saw him and invited him to lunch and told him about our long-term recovery program, because a lot of people deal with addiction issues. And he came into the program, and he later said, I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. But about a month after he came into the program, he had a pretty serious heart attack. And I really realized that if Johnny was still out there on the street, he would have died. But I'm so grateful that he was in our program, and he was surrounded by caring people, and we got him into the hospital right away, and he came through it really well, and now he has dental work, he has new teeth, he had glaucoma surgery, he graduated from our program, and he's doing great, and he's volunteering at our thrift store. But it just reminds me of those who never made it to our doors. And this time of year especially, we're called to count our blessings and to remember those who have passed away while experiencing homelessness, as well as those who are still out there waiting for that hope.
The confirmed speakers, in addition to the two of you at this event, Dawn Gilman, who's the CEO of Changing Homelessness, is also one of the speakers. And a couple of years ago, she participated in a podcast with the author and social scientist Malcolm Gladwell on his podcast, Revisionist History. And, he asked Dawn Gilman about the annual event. Let's just take a listen to what she told him.
Some portion of the people who do not get help end up dying on the streets. Almost every community in the country has a service for those who've fallen. It happens in late December, on winter solstice. It's become a tradition. In Jacksonville, the service is held at the City Rescue Mission downtown. A choir sings, a local pastor gives the homily. Then Dawn Gilman performs her final duty of the year.
I've had the honor for the last 10 years of reading the names, and the list is always too long. And before I read the name, I remind everybody that there are 6 categories of homeless people, and that's someone's mother or someone's father, someone's son or someone's daughter, or their sister or their brother. So it's more than dots on a scatter plot.
It's a reminder that this is, a very emotional event, not just for the families, but for the participants and for people who have either, lived through homelessness or have known someone who has.
Absolutely. And we try to really make it a celebration of their lives. Prior to working for Changing Homelessness, I consulted for the organization for 11 years. And I remember when I first started and I was asked to help with the memorial, and I felt so ashamed because I never thought about what happens to someone if they passed away while experiencing homelessness. It never crossed my mind as a young adult. I never thought about that. And so this is something that I actually look forward to because I feel like it's something that, the persons who passed away will never know that their lives were celebrated in such a way. But we come together and we celebrate them just as if they were our actual kinfolk. And so I think that's really important for our community. And all are welcome to attend the event.
Yeah. And Paul, the event is open to the public. It is a free event. It is on December 19th, this Friday at 8:30 in the morning. Who would you recommend come to the event? Do you think it serves the wider community?
Oh, sure. I think anybody who has a concern about those who are experiencing homelessness, because they're really our invisible neighbors.
And this is something that you will be a part of as well. Anything different this year? Do we know how many people are going to be honored?
As of right now, I think the list is about 31 or 32 names thus far. And I will, unfortunately, that could even increase between now and Friday, realistically.
Right. Would you also encourage people that maybe don't have a direct connection to come just to sort of get a sense of the event and the people?
Absolutely. I think it is something that anyone who is concerned about homelessness or who has experienced maybe a loss of someone or who just wants to honor the lives of persons who, died on our streets to come and celebrate their lives.
Well, Ioana Allen, Paul Stasi, thank you so much for being here. We have a link, and you can RSVP for that event by going to that link.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for being
us.
here.
you.
All right. Up next, an annual holiday crime celebrated its 11th year in Amelia Island. We preview how the big band stole Christmas.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
On the next Fresh Air, we remember Rob Reiner and rebroadcast the interview we recorded just a few months ago. We talked about his TV shows and movies, his relationship with his father, Carl Reiner, a TV pioneer, and what it was like to grow up in a showbiz family and become a star himself at a relatively young age. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
15 years ago, physician Siddhartha Mukherjee won the Pulitzer Prize for his literary book about cancer, The Emperor of All Maladies.
The closest I can describe cancer is a many-headed hydra. It's obviously something that's penetrated our lives in very complex ways.
We'll talk with him about how much has changed in cancer research since then. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
Millions of teens across the country are applying to college for the first time. To get more prospective students in the door, many colleges are easing application requirements, offering more scholarships, and admitting a greater share of students than in the past. Going inside the changing college admissions process. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, a full 19-piece big band joins singers, dancers, and characters ranging from Santa to the Grinch in the annual How the Big Band Stole Christmas. The show is now in its 11th year at the Amelia Community Theater. Here to tell us about it, we are joined by co-producer and band leader, Dennis Negrin. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. We're also joined by Theo Canty, one of the featured vocalists for this year's show. Theo, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so this is a real melting pot of influences, performances. We should say that you're also a trumpet player, Dennis. So you're, in the show. Theo, you are performing and, kind of the star of as a featured vocalist. Tell us a little bit, first of all, about your performance and what you like about doing this annual show.
Yeah, so we do this performance, I think this is my fourth or fifth year. And it's just so much fun. It's so fun to watch the kids come up to you afterwards and they want to hug you and sing and they just have a really good time. So the families have a great time. It gets people in the holiday spirit right before the holidays. And so that's just probably my favorite part. I tend to like to sing a lot of the Christmas ballads. So I'll Be Home for Christmas and all those little sentimental songs.
Yeah, you've got a soft spot for the Christmas sentiment.
Yeah.
And Dennis, what is it that you most enjoy about this annual show? You're obviously doing a lot of legwork co-producing it in addition to being part of the show itself?
Yeah, I think my favorite, to Theo's point, is definitely that community aspect of it. And then also, I love performing, so it's a really great opportunity for me to get to just kind of let loose and play. And we have a ton of fun skits. It's definitely my favorite. Sometimes I might leave the stage and put on a Charlie Brown outfit. A couple other surprises in the show. I don't know who's going to dress as the Grinch this year. So it's just a lot of fun. The skits really add a lot.
I bet you do know who's going to dress as the Grinch this year. But so this is not for kids, though. I mean, this is for people of all ages. And the big band aspect really is kind of something that I think moves the demographic up considerably, because you have people that really enjoy that sound, in addition to the stuff that's more aimed at the children.
Yeah, it's a great show. It brings together all the ages. So you'll have, folks who are there to listen to the music of the 1940s. And then you'll have, kids there, and some more modern music as well.
It has been a little bit of a tradition that has developed. I mean, you say this is your 4th year doing it, but it's been now more than a decade that it's been running. And so how has it changed? How has it become, or has it? I mean, has it become a bigger event for the people in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia?
Yeah, I think it's grown. The past 3 years, we've sold out every performance. So we've grown from 1 performance. Now we have 6. We've been able to add so many skits, so many musicians, local dancers, acrobats. This is the first year we're planning on adding the string section. So it's really grown and developed, and it started off as a variety show, and now it tells the whole story. We've got a tap dancing elf. That's one of the best parts about the show is it continues to evolve and get bigger and better every year.
And you say that it is now kind of more of like a universal, it continues through as opposed to a series of skits. It's kind of got a theme that runs through.
Yeah, so there's definitely a mischievous elf. We can't give away what she's up to, but she's been known to steal things. And color in the music books and do different things to kind of wreak havoc to the band.
Yeah, Theo, what is it that that you hear from people when they attend? I mean, I know you said that kids love this. You're a Douglas Anderson School kid, but also you trained at Berkeley, so you've got a really magnificent skill set. But some of this show is just fun.
Yeah, a lot of it is just fun. You don't always get to get on stage and just have a good time and look at the people feel joy. I think the biggest thing for me is when you can see that you're bringing someone some Christmas cheer, and you're standing on the stage and you look out and you see all of these brightly smiling faces, and it's just such an awesome experience.
So you mentioned that there are 6 shows this year. Dennis, this is Friday through Sunday, essentially this weekend. So, but there are 6 showings in that time. So there are matinees available. The other shows are at 7:30 at night. And this is at the Amelia Community Theater. Remind us where that is.
So it's up in Fernandina Beach. It's off Cedar Street. It's a great local community theater. We've been fortunate to part with them for multiple years. And it's a really great place. You can go see a show. You can do dinner or lunch beforehand up on Amelia Island. It's a really welcoming, good theater.
Yeah. Well, we've got a link on our website if you'd like tickets. It is the big band that stole Christmas. Dennis Negrin, Theo Canty, thank you so much for coming on today and break a leg.
Thank you.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you missed anything, you can find all of our past and current shows at firstcoastconnect.org. And while you're there, you can sign up for our brand new newsletter, which delivers show information, including upcoming guests and an opportunity to submit questions. It's at firstcoastconnect.org. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow, and our director is Brady Coram. The theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we talk to both sides of a community rift over city investment dollars in the East Side. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Peterbrook Chocolatier offers handcrafted European-style chocolates, classic truffles, and seasonal favorites to sweeten this holiday season for your family and friends. Locations include the historic shops of Avondale.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR